I had my first taste of alcohol as a child of 9 years old. My dad and his buddies were sitting around drinking beer, and I just wondered how fantastic it must taste because they're drinking and having such a merry time. So I begged, and finally my dad said, "Here, boy." And I took a sip of his Michelob, and I immediately spit it on his shoes. It tasted horrible. I couldn't understand how adults could do this to themselves and actually enjoy it. That was my first drink. I took my second drink at 18. A bunch of guys going out after graduation. I tasted alcohol before, but it wasn't a big deal. So I decided to take another drink, and guess what? I still didn't like it. It tasted horrible. How could people enjoy this? I didn't go on a bender, even though it was readily available. I could have drank like a fish, but I chose not to because it had lost its luster. Therefore, I feel like we should lower the drinking age. Just because the drinking age is lowered to 18, it doesn't mean that these young adults are just going to go on benders all the time. That doesn't mean that at all. Because it's either in them or it's not. Everyone has the propensity for addiction of some sort. And not everyone's is alcohol. If we lower the drinking age, it would go along into a number of things that's already been lowered. Because 18-year-olds are already classified as adults. They can choose the leader of the free world. They can get drafted into the military. They can get punished for crimes and receive the most harshest of punishment, life imprisonment, death. But we can't trust them with a beer. They're not mature enough. Now, I've done research on this subject. And from my research, I've discovered by lowering the age, it would decrease the interest in drinking and it'll lose its luster. If these 18-year-olds can't really truly be considered adults, then why do they have the right to vote? Why are they able to join the military? Why do we draft them and force them to go? Involuntary or voluntary, it's all the same. But through education, it will help the transition from being non-alcoholic drinking youngsters to being able to have the right to drink at a young age. Now, when we talk about the right to vote, children haven't always had the right to vote because they were always thought to be too immature. But, as with all things, there's a transition because maturity increases over time. Emanuel Seller, a representative in 1944, he said, 18 is old enough to fight, but you're not old enough to make the decision of what to fight for. That makes no sense. But in 1954, U.S. Senator Blair Moody said that the only people that are making those decisions are long dead. The children of progressive 1954 were 50 times more proficient in government than their parents before. As a matter of fact, in 1954, before then, it was uncommon for people to even finish high school. So if you finished high school in 1954, you were a big shot and you were considered to be highly educated. But you were so educated that if you wanted to, you could join the military. There are kids who snuck into the military, forging their parents' signature at 14, 15, so that they can fight. A conscious decision. But Uncle Sam says, hey, you are old enough to fight, and you're old enough to wield these weapons. But they don't just give you a gun. They train you. You get rigorous training on how to kill, how to maim, and how not to kill your friends before they hand you this dangerous weapon. As a matter of fact, if you were an Air Force fighter pilot and you were 26, you were too old for the job because your reflexes aren't fast enough to be a fighter pilot. So if we can trust an 18-year-old with a jet that breaks the sound barrier, you mean to tell me you can't have the maturity to drink? We should give them the same education with alcohol as we do when we give them a weapon. The government was so afraid of the states actually exercising common sense and allowing 18-year-olds to drink that they made a penalty of removing 10% of all highway funding to those states that did not maintain a legal drinking limit of 21. Because for years, you could go to Louisiana and purchase alcohol as an 18-year-old. But it was the threat of the removal of the highway funds that made them change their mind. Why not just make rules for it? Why not require 18-year-olds to complete high school, complete alcohol classes, require them to have a clean driving record? Or better yet, let's start the education younger. Let's educate the younger children on the perils and consequences of consuming alcohol. Let's take the shine off of it. Now, 18-year-olds already have the right to vote. They can choose the leaders of the free world. They can join the military and fight and kill in the name of freedom. And they can make better decisions with education. So now that we know these things, the next time you're having a drink, give your 18-year-old a shot. Because society already insists that he can handle much more.